Hello and welcome back to the Self-Wealth Real Estate Podcast with your host, Luke Boyaron. Today I'm interviewing Alfonso Salemi of JAAG Properties. Alfonso is a rent-to-own expert, and he talks about how he started in real estate, how he started in rent-to-owns, how he's built his business. We talked a bit about building the business and hiring, as well as digging into details on how rent-to-own works and all of that. Of course, as always, we talked about his best and worst deals and the lessons learned from that. And Alfonso, not only is a funny guy, but also super knowledgeable about rent-to-owns. So I think it's an enjoyable episode, and I hope you enjoy it. Take care. Alfonso Salemi, welcome on the podcast.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Luke.
So Alfonso, tell me a bit about your background. What did you do before real estate?
It was mostly, I went to school for sales and marketing. That's what the diploma from Mohawk College, community college, that's what I did. And then it was really right out of school, I did door-to-door sales. It was just when Bell had demonopolized, or the Canadian government, I guess, had demonopolized the home phone service. So Rogers got into the home phone game, and I was literally knocking door-to-door, wearing Rogers jacket, trying to convince people to change from their current provider to Rogers and try to build rapport really quick, and hearing no a lot and getting, doors slammed on me, to, police called, to people inviting me to have like tea and coffee and watch their kids. Right. So, so that was really exciting. And then I had a few different other jobs in terms of working for a global window coverings distributor. So they provided all the parts, materials for big companies like Blinds to Go or Covers of the World. So got to do a little bit of, business to business type sales. And then UPS, one of the big, obviously small package or global logistics company. So again, a little bit of business to business sales. And believe it or not, I don't really tell too many people this, but I actually worked for the hair club as well. So I was a regional manager for them as well. It didn't work out. If you're watching this podcast, you could tell that it didn't work out. But yeah. So really is more about customer service, sales. That's what I really got into. And it was around that time that I was working for the hair club that I read The Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that's what kind of led me into the real estate world. But it was always around, I wanted to help people, whether it was a product, a service, something that helped them, their family, make their life a little bit easier, right? Or improve their life. And in all those facets, that was the kind of continuing theme. And that's why, real estate, and then specifically the rent-to-own model, spoke to me so much, is that I was still able to connect and talk with people. There was the business to business, because you're working with professionals like mortgage agents, realtors. You're still working with consumers, like your end user, the tenant buyer. So it kind of blended all the different types of sales and marketing that I'd done in my previous history.
Nice. So how did you get into real estate? What did your first deal look like at that start?
Yeah, well, it was almost a triplex, but it was, the first deal was a rent to own. My now business partner, Adam, had taken, some courses as part of the same, networking of education group that I was, and he had done a couple of rental deals. I had just started working with a mentor, trying to look and find deals, had a little bit of capital and was able to qualify for mortgages. And, Adam had sent out a deal and said, hey, we're looking for a JV partner who wants to invest. And all the numbers lined up with everything that I learned from the classes. I showed it to my mentor. So within half an hour, I emailed them back and said, hey, I want to do this deal. One specific condition is that I want to learn everything that you're doing, because I want to do this as a business. And that was the first deal. It was a rent to own. We'll probably talk about this deal later, but it was just an awesome deal. It was in Welland. The tenant buyer was a hairdresser. So she made a lot of income, but didn't claim it. Had the social credit, and an amazing down payment that actually reduced the actual investment, to like 6-7% of the purchase price. So as a rental property, you really have to put 20 or 25 down, because it's, an income property, but the amount of capital required was really low. The client was fantastic. And that was the first deal. It was a rent to own. She wanted to own her home. She had to clean up her credit, claim a little bit more income. and she paid on time all the time. She was great. I didn't get the benefit from her air services, obviously. It's just 2 air chokes in the first 10 minutes here. That's we're going to tone it down. But it was a great. It was great. She wanted to own her home. She wanted to work out of her home. She converted her garage into her salon so that she could have her clients and live the lifestyle she wants. And she's still there. We started that deal in 2014. She ended up owning her home in 2018 and has been there ever since. So that was the first exposure, the first deal in JAAG real estate.
And then from there, I guess, how did you end up partnering with Adam, and how did that?
Yeah, so I guess the way that that deal took a little bit longer to kind of onboard. Like, we started looking at that deal like in January or February, and then by the time she found like the perfect property for her to have the salon, there's a lot of communication. It was going back and forth. Adam, we had really some complementing skill sets. I was more again on the sales and marketing side, like talking to people. Adam was more on the numbers, crunching at ones and zeros. He's an engineer by trade. So our skill sets matched, where, I loved going out and telling people, providing opportunity. He was crunching the numbers to make sure, the payments were correct, and, the terms and, the qualifications and all that kind of stuff. So we kind of said, hey, well, I can do 1 or 2 at that time. He had kind of maxed himself out. I said, if we wanted to, or at least why don't we try to go out and find, JV partners, or find, other OPM, other people's money, other JVs that can help us do more of these deals. And it kind of clicked at that point there. And that's where it started. We had maxed ourselves out, started working with joint venture partners, created, business for a long time. It was just him and I doing this business, and then, eventually bringing on staff. But that's what got us connected initially. Was this deal took a little bit longer. The tenant buyer was searching for properties. We got to know each other a little bit and realized that we had skills that could complement each other. And that's kind of where it started.
Nice. So let's fast forward. How many rent-to-own deals have you done in your career?
We are now approaching 300 projects that we've either concluded, that are in operation, that tenant buyers own their own. So there's currently, I think we have about 70 or so that are in operation, 60 some odd deals that are currently in operation that the clients are going through the program. But it's crazy. Before it was all about like kind of chasing down, running down that number, but now it's more about looking at the quality of the client. What's their story? What are the hurdles or the obstacles that they're facing? And then on the other side, the joint venture partners, what's motivating them to invest, right? They have adult children, or they're thinking about retirement, or they want to work less. So, close to 300 projects now that we've been working on.
That's awesome. And for those who don't know, what is rent to own? Can you give us a detailed explanation of how it works?
Absolutely. Essentially, the way that we think rent to own or rent to home is operated is you have kind of a few different parties or a few different characters of the story here. So first, you have your tenant buyers. So those are families, individuals that can't qualify for conventional finance. Something has prevented them, their income, their down payment, their credit, from qualifying at the bank. The second character is our joint venture partner or our investor, the people or the individuals that are actually going to be on title, that own the home, own the real estate, own the rental property, and then our referral partners. So those are like real estate agents, mortgage brokers, the real estate professionals that are connecting us with either one of those, tenant buyers or joint venture partners. So really it starts with the tenant buyer. We try to identify what that issue is and kind of underwrite them in a similar type fashion than as a lender or mortgage lender or a bank. Once we do that, we provide a budget. It's $500, $600, $700,000, whatever fits within their budget. They go out, actually search and choose the home that they want to live in and eventually own. At that point there, our joint venture partner purchases that home. So they're on title, they buy 123 Main Street, and they say, hey, we're going to buy it at this $500,000 purchase price. And then they sell it back to the tenant buyer at the end of the term at an appreciated price. Once the tenant buyers, fix their credit, save up their down payment, claim their income properly, or build up their income history at that predetermined price. We work with realtors, we work with mortgage brokers that connect us to both of those parties. So the realtors still get to go and show homes to the tenant buyer. We're still purchasing that with their mortgage brokers, get to work with the client to qualify at the end of the program as well. There's our joint venture partners to buy the home today as a rental property. So typically the 3 years, we work with our clients throughout the program to make sure our rental home coaches are in contact, making sure that the credit, income, down payment, that they're staying on path. And that's what our job is really to kind of manage or facilitate, match make all those things to make it all possible, where the investor's hands off, the tenant buyer has the plan, the realtor, the mortgage broker are doing their normal course of business. And we're just kind of facilitating the successful exit or the sell to the tenant buyer at the end of the program so that they get to that finish line and become a homeowner.
So what's the difference between a rent-to-own and a term I hear Americans often refer to called the lease option? What's the difference?
One and the same. Tomato. Really, it's a rent-to-own or a lease with an option to buy. It's really in the same lease to buy.
Terminology, right?
Just a little bit of a different terminology, like a rehab or a flip, right? It's kind of like, well, which one sounds prettier, right? So, no real difference in the name.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, I know you're talking about all the different parties involved. From my understanding, you really, at the core of it, you only need two parties. You need a tenant buyer and essentially the investor or the person who's going to be purchasing the property. That's what you need to put a deal together. And you guys are putting it together with more parties. You're allowing more people to get in it so that they're providing a part of the pie. You have the tenant buyer. You bring an investor in who's getting the capital. You guys are putting it all together and providing the knowledge, the tools, putting people together with mortgage brokers and credit repair companies, stuff like that, and the realtors to find the property. So you're putting all of it together, but at the core, you really need two parts. That's the core.
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing the property management and the people management, really, of all the different players in the game. But yeah, essentially, you have somebody that can't buy a home today, someone that can, and that is willing to sell that home in the future at a predetermined price, so that the client can own it. Yep.
So let's try to simplify an example of it so that people can understand. If we take a house that we could buy right now for $100,000, which I understand doesn't exist, but let's just so we can kind of understand with percentages and do quick math in our heads.
Sure.
A tenant buyer comes to you, they're approved to buy a house for $100,000. How does that work? Give me some numbers. What are they paying in rent? How much down payment? Who's paying what?
Yep, exactly. So again, you'd run, a mortgage calculator on that $100,000 purchase, right? So you have your down payment, you have your mortgage amount, and very similar as if they were qualified conventionally at a bank, they would be paying what the mortgage, the principal and interest on that mortgage of that, say $100,000 or $95,000 or $90,000, they'd be paying the mortgage. Now, there's also taxes and insurance that need to be paid as well. So I break it down to the PI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. That's what that tenant buyer's essentially rental payment is going to be, more or less. Maybe a small premium as if it was a normal rental property and you and I are buying it $100,000 and our principal, interest, tax, insurance are, I don't know, $1,000. We would charge $1,200 or $1,300 a month to make some positive cash flow. The difference in the rent to own is what that monthly rent credit, above and beyond the rental payment, is what the rent credit is for the client. And that's different for every single tenant buyer. People want to know, what's the percentage? What's the interest rate? How much are they paying? But really what it boils down to is how much does the tenant buyer start the program with and how much do they need by the end of the program? So simple math, if, I don't know, they start the program with $10,000 and they need to get to 20 by the end, their $10,000 payment is just broken out by the length of the term, 24 months, 36 months, 48 months. That's how much they're paying. But if another tenant buyer has only 5, well, it's $15,000 that's spread out over the term. If they start with 15, then they only need to break out the 5. So the payment of the rent credit, or the amount of the rent credit, I should say, on the monthly basis, is all determined by how much they start and how much they end. So 2 tenant buyers could be qualified for that same $100,000 home, but their payments will be different because they entered into the program with a lower option consideration or deposit to put towards their future down payment. So that's what the payments consist of. And typically we use about a 5% appreciation. So that's what we'll sell the home for in the future to the tenant buyer in typically 3 years. That's about 80% of our programs are 3 years into the future at an appreciated price. That's how, again, we generate some revenue and profit for our investors, is the monthly cash flow as well as the appreciated price at the end of the term. So some deals cash flow a little bit more, some deals a little bit less because of that monthly rent credit.
So let me do some quick math here. Let me get this right. You're buying a house now, tenant buyer. Let's say they find something for exactly $100,000. So the plan is in 3 years they're going to buy it from your investor and you for $115,000.
Yeah, 5% annual appreciation. Yeah,
must be compounding, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So so that's good to take into account. So times 1.0. You do this. All right, so we're actually at 115,762.
All right. Perfect.
And now they're only going to get a mortgage. They're going to need 20% down, probably. Is that what we think at the end of?
Yeah, most of our clients, we want to see them to have at least 10 because if they are, even if they're T4, have normal income jobs, their credit, they could put 5% down. Yes, they'd have to pay the CMHC insurance, okay. But if they're self-employed, they need a minimum of 10%. And if they've had some credit history or even some bruised credit, then yeah, we'd want to get them to that 20% to open up the options in terms of lenders at the end of the term. So maybe 10 is a good number to use at the end.
Okay. So in this case, they're buying for $115,000. They'll need, just for the 10%, they'll need about, let's call it $12,000. Plus they'll need some closing costs to close. So let's call it, they'll need $15,000 to close.
Yeah.
But I guess $12,000 to you, really. They'll have to save up a little bit separately. So they need 12. Let's say they come to you with $5,000, right? I know we're doing very low numbers just for an easy example. They come to you with $5,000. That means they're short $7,000 over the 3 years they need to build back.
Yeah.
And if we divide that by 36 months, they need to pay an extra $195 a month.
You got it.
In addition to the normal rent.
Yep.
So they pay that at the end of the term. They prepaid like a partial down payment to you guys, and they've got there now $12,000. So how does it work for the person buying the property initially? They're getting $5,000 from the tenant buyer. How does that work?
Yeah, so that $5,000, more often than not, typically it's going in as the offer deposit when we're purchasing the home. We're making the offer on the home, so it's actually going towards the initial purchase. It's not like we collect that initial deposit and go to the casino and put it on red. We are actually putting that towards the purchase of the home. It's an equity into the property. And it's credited back. That $5,000 plus the $7,000 that they're saving throughout the term is credited to that tenant buyer at the end when we're selling it back. So the investor, joint venture partner, gets to utilize that initial deposit in the purchase of the home when they're buying it. So it actually reduces the capital. And that's the example that I gave with that hairdresser, is that she had, 13, 14% of the purchase price. Us as investors, we only had to come up with like $7,000 or 7% of the purchase. So we're like, this is a no-brainer. It was like crazy return on the investment, right? So, And again, some clients, the down payment's not their issue. It's their credit or their income that they're not claiming properly. So some have pretty significant deposits. Some maybe don't have enough, and they have good credit or good jobs, but they need to build up the down payment. So yeah, that's how that works. It's actually applied towards the initial purchase and then credited back to the tenant buyer at the end.
Yeah, and so if the investor would need to put $20,000 down because they're putting 20% on the purchase, they get $5,000 subsidized essentially, and so they only need to put $15,000 down. So that reduces the capital required. Not to mention they get the extra cash flow in addition to a little bit of cash flow from the rent. Hopefully, they also get a little bit of extra cash flow in the meantime as these kind of prepaid down payment is paid towards them monthly.
Yeah. And here's the thing that doesn't go on the spreadsheet, and why I invested in rent to own, is then they have a client, a tenant buyer that is in their property that wants to take care of it, that is maintaining it, that has a pride of ownership. They don't necessarily need to worry about maintenance stuff. There's things that come up in a home: furnaces break, rooms need blow off, and basements leak and all that kind of stuff. But the tenant buyer is responsible for all those repairs, maintenance. We have insurance on the property, so if any of those types of things happen, the insurance covers it. The tenant buyer is paying that deductible. It's peace of mind with kind of like a premier tenant in the property.
Yeah. That's great. That's it sounds good for everyone. And then the tenant buyer is able to improve their credit over the time, and they're able to own their home, and they're essentially able to start the process sooner. So what are some common misunderstandings, good or bad, that people have about rent to own?
Yeah. Since I started and way before I even knew what rent to own was, there's people doing this. Like essentially, it's what the banks did in the early days, right? It's what a mortgage is now. It's like, here, you pick the home, we'll give you the money, you just pay us back, right? That's the rental. But what I found, it doesn't matter what small town or big city, or there's always somebody or some shyster out there that called it a rent to own and ripped somebody off, or somebody knows their neighbor's dog walker, second cousin's best friend that got, scammed. And I'm not denying it. It's probably happened out there. We've heard stories, people that have entered into our program that have been taken advantage of. That's kind of the misnomer of that. You pay more and you never get to own the house. And if you pay 30 seconds late, they're going to kick you out of your house. And for us, that's where we've tried to kind of change the perception of it and do more podcasts like this and get out there and actually be upfront and say, hey, this is how we think it should work. And if it does go this way, usually everybody wins. But that's the misconception. Or the other thing is that, like, and there are still programs that do this where that you have to rent to own that specific house. So say, one of your properties in the portfolio is not cash flowing, or the tenants leave and they say, oh, do a rent to own with this house. And then you're charging that premium rent, not only the principal tax, but also the rent credit. And then it's like a wishy-washy type of agreement. Oh, well, whenever you're ready, you let me know and we'll buy it. For how much? Well, we'll talk about it then. Or the paperwork's not, proper, right? So I think that the few things that, if you're going to do a rent to own with anyone, you have to make sure, from both sides, the tenant buyer that you're protected, the joint venture partner that you're protected, but more specifically on the tenant buyer side, that it's either a predetermined time frame or a predetermined price at a certain time, that it's into the future. And what's the plan of, if I can't buy it today, well, what's going to change over the next 2, 3, 4 years, or what do I need to do so I'm able to do that? Because it's not just going to be like, oh, you're going to rent to own, great, in 3 years, you're just going to magically get mortgage financing. Well, no, you need to still meet the bank's requirements. We don't want to rent to own to people for their life. We want them to own. So that's what I'm always kind of up against, is people have had, heard, or talked about bad stories. And I love hearing them, because I'm like, tell me about them. And I'll tell you how we correct it. If it's something new or different, then it makes us look at our business and say, okay, well, how can we prevent that from happening? How does, if the joint venture partner says, well, what if they don't pay, or if they're paid late? Well, they've given a significant deposit. They want to live there. You own the home. They are a tenant. Now in Ontario, everybody's got their gripes with the LTV, but again, there are the proper channels that you have control of the property. It's not, the tenant buyer and you're just supplementing them. They have a plan to follow. So, that's probably the most of the misconceptions, that it is a scam or someone's up there to get you. But if you read the paperwork, if you ask the right questions, we try to put so much information, knowledge, things out there on how it should be operated, that even if you're not using us, here are the things that you should have in place that are protecting you as a tenant buyer, you as a joint venture partner, and even the realtors and mortgage brokers that are licensed, to make sure that they're, in accordance with their licenses, that they're not putting them in jeopardy either.
So let's say I have a rental property of mine, or a vacant property, a flip, whatever, that I want to sell, and I already own the property.
Yeah.
Now I just want to find a tenant buyer for it. Let's say I do the paperwork correctly. There's a set time to buy it. There's a proper agreement. We do everything else right, but they're not looking for the property. I already have it. What do you think of that? And
yeah, it's a little different than our approach of the client, and then they go get to choose the home. But we've done that in some cases where we worked with investors with that exact scenario. They had a rental property and they said, hey, it's not cash flowing, or hey, I want to actually make a little bit more on this. I want to do a rental. So we reverse engineer. We say, okay, great, Luke, we don't care what you bought for. We don't care how much work you put for. Approximately, using comparables, what's the home worth today? If it were to sell, what has comparables sold for in the last few months? Let's put that. It's a $500,000 home. Great. $500,000. Now we reverse engineer. We need to look for a client that makes a certain amount of income, that has a certain amount of down payment. The credit needs to be somewhere, not on the terrible spectrum, but, on the way to improvement. And then they have to like the house. So they have $500,000 budget. They can pick your neighbor's house, or they can pick your house, but they want to own, or if you're marketing your home, say, oh, I would love to buy this place. We've had actually tenants approach us and say, my landlord's selling. We're like, do you want to stay there? Do you want to live there? Yeah, I could consider live there. So we could talk to the owner or the landlord and say, well, what would you want to sell this home for? They give us that number. And we've done this now, I think, at least 3 times where the tenants in the home qualify for that purchase. So they're like, great, okay, let's stay here. They don't have to move. They don't have to uproot their family, do any of that kind of stuff. And now we buy the home from that landlord that wanted to sell it, don't have to displace the family. So it happens all the time. It's not our conventional way because we're the client first approach where we underwrite them and they go and choose. It's just easier because then I don't need to worry about, feng shui and which way is it facing? And is it 2-level? Is it a bungalow? Is it, a condo? All that kind of stuff. But in the case where an investor, if you're thinking, hey, I have a property that I would love to rent to own and I want to hold on to it for another 2 or 3 or 4 years, I don't mind selling it in 3 years from now or 4 years from now. Yeah, you could stay on as the titled owner. There's no land transfer legals. You save on all that stuff. And now you have, again, a tenant in your home that's going to take care of your place. That's actually okay. The numbers just have to line up with the purchase price. We don't want to, that's, again, where people got in trouble where, hey, look at a $700,000 home and we'll just put anybody in there. And well, why are you going to qualify for this? Well, I don't know, kicked out and get somebody else in there. That's not what we do. We want to make sure that the tenant's actually going to be able to qualify.
Yeah. And that would be what we call, I believe, property first, rent to own.
The property
tenant first.
You got
And why is it that you prefer the tenant first model?
For me, I bought, well, if you don't include rental properties, like where I personally slept and put my head, I bought 3 of those in my life, right? I got to pick them, right? I said, okay, I like the layout, or I wish it was a little bit bigger, but I like the kitchen. I have a backyard. This one, it's close to a school for now, my family. So I got to choose that home. And if you're choosing that, like that tenant buyer is now not only emotionally connected, because investors, most of the time, we look at spreadsheets, numbers, does it cash flow? Does it make sense? Is it a good area? Check. For people's homes, like it's an emotional attachment. As investors, rule number 1, don't get emotionally connected. But for people that want to own their home, that is rule number 1. Emotionally connected to it, it's going to make you overcome those challenges. Or hey, there's a job loss, or hey, you know what, something happened to the car, but you're not going to miss your mortgage payment because you want to stay in your home. So that's why, for me personally, and for JAAG, why we typically do the client first approach is because the tenant buyer is now more involved in the process. They have more stake in the game, and they actually get to pick the home. If they want a 2-level, if they want a small backyard, a big backyard, that's their perception. Who am I to pick where somebody else is living because I like it a certain way? Well, I'm not going to be living there. I'm going to see it a couple times a year. You're going to be there day in and day out. You should get to choose it and actually be part of that process.
Are you a savvy real estate investor looking to maximize your profits? Well, if you're buying properties off the MLS, you're not making as much as you could. The most lucrative way to boost your bottom line is by acquiring investment properties off market. By buying privately off market, you're able to save tens of thousands. Now, the problem is finding off market properties is really hard and takes a lot of time, effort, and money to do. Bliss is your number 1 source, delivering exclusive deals that you will not find on the MLS directly to your inbox. Bliss's extensive network and insider connections gives you access to properties that are not publicly listed and at a discount. We've helped hundreds of investors across Ontario and BC source the right properties at the right time for their portfolio. Buying assignable purchase contracts through Bliss at a discount helps facilitate higher returns, lower competition, and deals that align perfectly with your investment goals. From start to finish, Bliss's world-class team of real estate professionals makes the process seamless for all investors. If you're ready to elevate your real estate investment strategy, visit us at offmarketbliss.ca to join our buyers list and start receiving exclusive off-market deals directly to your inbox. The most profitable opportunities await, and they're exclusive to you and our valued buyers list members. For your next project, check out Bliss, the go-to source for off-market deals.
Awesome. Well, I want to talk a bit about how you kind of built your business. You started off, you did one rent to own, your first real estate deal. You and Adam partner up. Now you've done close to 300 of them. How did that progression happen? How did you manage to do that?
Oh, man.
Tell me about that and building the processes, the systems, the teams. What did you do?
Yeah. So you know what? At first, it was just kind of tell as many people as we can of what we're doing. It's funny, we talk about like our CRM now. Before, our CRM was like, are you applied for our program? No, you don't exist to me anymore. We forgot, lose number, lose email, all that kind of stuff. Now we obviously putting in different campaigns, but it was really in person. Sitting at Tim Hortons for a day, meeting 5, 6, 7 realtors, mortgage agents, telling them about our program, doing those types of meetings, and then eventually doing presentations of one to many about the rent-to-own programs, and then getting in the rooms where people want to invest in real estate, right? There's, networking events and then different, social circles where it's like, hey, what do you do? Well, we help people own their home and help people create, a great return on their investment. Oh, tell me more. Absolutely, I will. Right. So that was kind of the initial process where, like I said, there's a lot of the front end marketing, sales, awareness of me going out and hunting per se, and then kind of bringing it back to Adam and to us and conversing. Okay, this is what we're looking for. This is the areas we want to work. These are the numbers. Okay, this client makes a certain amount. Partnering with a mortgage agent that had done rent to owns, that had a great pre-qualifying system that we would pay peanuts, right? Of like, hey, just qualify this client, see if it works or not, whether it's a yes or no. Building the pre-screening process, and then okay, once they are qualified, it was really like, if there was 100 steps, it was like, hey, let's do step 1, 2, 3. Okay, then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3. It's like almost like a game of Super Mario of like beating a certain level, and then okay, now we get up to that next level, and then yeah, as we grew the team, initially it was more of like a credit specialist type mortgage person that was in contact with the clients, because as we were building it, it was great, but then we had 5, 10, 20 people that were in the program that were like, hey, we need to follow up, give them tools, send books to them, send knowledge things about their credit, in contact with them. And then it was doing on like an operations type person. It's actually to go out to the property for the home inspection, submit the offers with the realtors, do that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, like a customer care person that when there was an issue or something that happened in the property, and then like, part-time admin that would pick up the phone and answer info emails, right? So, wow, it's kind of going back. I don't think I've ever, kind of gone back on that, but slowly that's how it progressed. And, but when it boils back to it, it's great because, all the different aspects of the business we did. And now there's different people in those roles that are doing it. And you're always like, oh, we used to do it like this, but then they bring another element of like, well, this is actually better. And like, yeah, that is. And I don't have to do it. You're doing it. So that's great. So that's kind of how it progressed. And yeah, we have a team of, 5, I guess, or 5 full-time and 2 part-time staff that kind of help facilitate it. And yeah, the rent collection and sending out invoices. So we brought on a bookkeeper, right? So that does all that when you're managing 60, 70 properties and then exiting the properties as well, too. It's just, thank God for DocuSign. That's all I have to say. You had to do some fax machines. Oh my God. I'd lose my hearing, right? Oh, that's it. But I think it's, I don't think we ever, set the intention of making this a business, to be honest. At first it was, let's help people get into home ownership. Let's make a great return on our investment. And then we were helping others and we're like, wow, we have a business here. Right. So I know a lot of people and that, take, personal development or business coaching, you start a business to sell it, or you start a business to, to pass it on to your family. Like, what's the intention? And for us, it was, let's help more people. And the business has evolved from it. We're not MBAs. We're not, business savvy people, the CEO types, that kind of stuff. So it's been kind of a scrappy start, different people and different elements and resources that we've been using. But ultimately at the core, it's finding our team of people that believe in what we do. That's our internal team. And then all the people that we speak to, like our referral partners that, want to help their clients, the investors that, it's amazing. And just kind of a side note, our joint venture partners, when we do like our appreciation dinners or we get in the meetups, it's all different walks of life. We have the doctors, lawyers, high level executives, but then we have like, plant managers and, school teachers and factory workers that are able to buy these homes. And you would think, they don't mesh or they don't match, and they have the choice of what to do with their money. They could put it in the stock market. They can invest in different things. But the thing that goes across all of them is that they want to help people own their home. A lot of them are investing because of the equity they have in their home. And they're like, if we can help another family do this, then that's the whole, mission or the impact that they're making, right? We all want to make a return on our investment. That's why we're doing it. But the impact that they're making. So I know I kind of sidetrailed there, but yeah, it's just you evolve into a business, and then it's like following up with the joint venture partners. What do we send to our tenant buyers? What events do we do? What things like that, right? So how do we spend a marketing budget? We're like, hey, that sounds cool. Let's go and do it, right? Without now, there's more planning, there's more thought behind it. Where sometimes I love it and I love the structure, and sometimes I'm like, oh man, just the good old days where I had like 9 cups of coffee at a Tim Hortons and just met with 6 or 7 or 8 agents in a day. And sometimes I do that as well, but now in more efficient ways and more structured ways.
So it sounds like at the beginning, you and Adam did all the grunt work. Who was your first hire, or what role was your first hire for?
Yeah, the first hire was like a credit. Yeah, Sally was like a credit specialist where, she certified financial planner, had a credit history, was on the road to becoming a mortgage broker, that had that financial background, that essentially took over that third-party mortgage broker, pre-screened our clients, was coaching and following up with the clients throughout the program, and then eventually exiting them into a mortgage at the end. So that was the first hire that we did, because that wasn't our skill set. We didn't know finance, and we knew that they needed the help. We just had to, we were providing that through a mortgage broker, but we're like, this is what differentiates us, is that we're actually providing the coaching and helping to our tenant buyers. So that was an important role for us to have.
Yeah, and the vetting is so important. It's similar to us. Like, you guys are vetting tenant buyers the same way we're vetting the homes that we're buying in our wholesale business, right? So there's a lot of similarities. You have to create a funnel. You need to get a lot of tenant buyers. How many tenant buyers would you say have to reach out to you to do one, to find one?
Wow. If you asked me almost 10 years ago now when we started, it was like 1 out of 5 would be great that we do a project with. Now that number's increased. It's probably like 1 out of 20, 1 out of 25. And just because, again, the affordability has gotten tougher. I saw great animation on social media, like wages and purchase prices. I don't know if it was Ontario or Canada, but just the gap just gets wider and wider and wider. And so, yeah, there's a lot of people that want to get into home ownership, that don't know where to start. So, and this is, I'd like to think I've had some part of this, is a lot more people are open to talking about rent to own, whether it's a tenant buyer, whether it's a JV partner, whether it's a mortgage broker, realtor. When I was meeting people, I had to beg them, and I had to kind of hide that I wanted to meet them to talk about rent to own. When I stayed just, no, not interested. I've heard about that. And now, like, it's incredible the amount of inbound inquiries that we get about, tell me more. How does it work? That's going to be the title of the first book. How does it work? Rent to own. So we're just getting a lot more inquiries. So yeah, definitely more, 20, 25, 30 before we get, that quality tenant buyer.
Nice. So that first hire, how did you know you needed to hire? Like, what was the impetus to do that versus continue to outsource and do it all yourself?
Yeah, it was just the best ability is availability. And the fact that, we needed pretty quick turnarounds on the updates of our clients, pre-screening clients. And, God bless him, but when we were working with that mortgage broker, he had his own business that he was trying to grow in the mortgage business in normal conventional ways. So he would kind of batch all of our applications, and we'd get it once a week. And we'd be like, well, it'd be hard to get that quick turnaround time to pre-approve somebody or to do a follow-up or to help them exit out. So we thought we would get more control of it if we brought it in-house. And at first it was part-time, and then it evolved into full-time. But it was just a control of what we think is the key element of the success of the tenant buyer. So if there's somebody constantly reminding them, that's their primary job or role, to say, hey, every 3 months, hey, how's your credit? How's your income? You got payment? You're going to own this house. The success definitely goes up. It's like a personal trainer or working out in your basement. Some people are disciplined enough to do it in the basement. Some people need the personal trainer. I'll put my hand up for that one. That they need that constant, motivation, support. That it's not the funnest thing to do, to be like, oh, how do I improve my credit score? How do I budget? Like, for me, I need to, really sit down and focus and have somebody kind of do that. So bringing on that financial person that was able to do that for our clients, and then that instant feedback that within an email, within a few hours, we would get feedback results and help us do that, differentiated us in the market, whatever everybody else is out there doing.
Nice. So it sounds like in part, if you didn't bring this person on, more of your deals would go wrong. You would not respond to tenant buyers as quickly, so you'd miss some opportunities where they, go to another provider, or they decide not to do it anymore, right? Or you can't reach them anymore. And so it sounds like you looked at the cost of hiring this person versus the cost of not hiring them, and their salary was low in comparison to what you would either be losing or additional amount making from having them on.
Absolutely. That and the fact that we were already paying for similar or kind of like a light version of that service. So we're like, well, with a little bit more, we get way more, like 5-10x versus the investment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to your point of, if we have more successful deals, there's less headaches, there's less issues, we're closing more deals, we're going to be more profitable. We can't afford to have that person. And it's, to your point, we couldn't afford not to do that. Right. So that was a key element, and neither of us had that skill set or were willing to go and get our mortgage license to go do that. Right. Because that was
for everything else you were doing. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Because that was early on some of our conversations of like, well, Alfonso, why don't you become a realtor, and Adam, why don't you become a mortgage broker and do this all in house and commissions and all that kind of stuff. And it seemed great and lucrative, but then we're like, then it creates a little bit of that scarcity mindset for when we're going to talk to other realtors or mortgage brokers. You're saying, hey, you're just trying to steal my business, right? Versus allowing me to do my business. And it's just an easier conversation, and it's remained true throughout the term of our business, for sure.
So what advice do you have to people who are kind of solopreneurs? They run their own business, or they do their own investing, and they have yet to hire anyone. Maybe they're afraid of taking on that salary. What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, first, identify the things you love doing in your business. The things that like you would do for free, like why you're doing it. Why, like, again, for me, I was at 100% commission when I was knocking door to door. So I was not getting paid to walk around. I wanted to talk to people, right? So I literally did it for free some days. But find the things that you love doing in your business, and identify those. First of all, saying, hey, if I could hire everybody in the world, this is what I would not hire for, because I would want to do if there's anything. And then realize, okay, well, what are the things that I'm willing to learn that I really want to become an expert in? Or I don't maybe not necessarily be an expert, but I can do well enough to service the business. And then the other end of the spectrum, what are the things that you hate doing that, that need to be done that you don't want to learn, or you just need to know enough that you need to bring somebody on that can actually do that more. So that's kind of the progression of stick to the things you love doing. We all need to work. We all need to contribute to society. We all need to do something. I would love to say, I'm just going to retire and sit on the beach all day, and by the end of the week, I'd be like, okay, I just made a deal with the coconut guy. Now I'm going to have the west side of the beach, and I'm going to sell coconuts, right? Like you need to keep busy. Our minds, that's how our human beings work. We have to do something, right? So identify the things that fill up your bucket, that drive you, that you're like, I am the best at this. I want to do this more, and do those. And then the things that you want to learn, that you can take on, that you have time and capacity to do, and the things that you hate, that you just avoid, and that, that you remind yourself on emails, and it's week after week, you're like, I got to get that done, and I haven't done that, or you're not creative and you don't want to do the marketing, I don't know, whatever that is. And then look for that person to maybe do part-time or on a contract basis, or like a 3-month trial period, something like that, where, it's like a non-committal. It's like a dating phase with that person. And then evolve into, okay, hey, this is something that I can manage or work with. Because when you do bring on multiple people, then it's not just about, hey, let's try to do a couple deals a month. It's like, well, wait, we need to, right, to sustain and to keep, the business going. Because if you don't keep the lights on, if you don't do business, then you don't need the people in the roles anymore, right? So it's that balance of, okay, well, what do you love doing? What do you want to do? And then the people that that love doing the things that you hate, right? That's just finding more of those people, right?
There are people like that. Absolutely. Yep.
If Adam and I were the same and we both love talking to people, people probably wouldn't get emails or numbers or facts and figures. If we were both the numbers person and analyzing deals, people probably wouldn't want to deal with us because they're, the communication part of it. So you need to have, a fair amount of skill in all aspects of it, and respect those other roles, because even though they love doing it, there's an element that, hey, unless you're going to willing to go become an expert at it, trust in that process of somebody else doing that for you, and maybe, take that chance. So that's the advice I'd give, is maybe a trial period just for a short period of time that somebody's willing to do that.
All right, let's move on to the next segment of the show, where we're going to talk about the best deal that you've ever done, or your favorite deal. You have one in mind?
I do. It was that first deal, because it got me off the sidelines. It got me from reading books, and there wasn't, podcasts as much as it was then, but reading books and, in-person education. That deal got me into the real estate world, and, it started the progression. It was that hairdresser out in Welland, and the day that she moved in, she was just so, when I go back to it, it gets me a little emotional. She was so excited. She thought that she would never be able to own a home because of her credit, because she didn't know where to start. She had been taken advantage of and been through a couple tough relationships. And the fact that I'm the one there giving her the key and saying, here, go ahead. This is your home. Let's move in. That was so fulfilling. Again, the numbers were great on it as well, because the investment was minimal. Like, in my mind, I'm like, hey, I got 30, 40, 50 grand put down. I only had to use like 15. And I'm like,
can you share those numbers from what you remember?
Oh man, yeah. So okay, so I do remember that we were making we split it because there's Stativ and I, but it was like $500 to $600 a month in cash flow. At the end of the term, we got another, I think it was like another $40,000. In the end of the 4-year term, it worked out to be like 27% return on investment per year, right? So it was blended because it wasn't all 27, but over the 3-year term, it was like 27%. So like over 100% return in 4 years. I was like, yeah, it was awesome, right? And then the emotional factor too. So the numbers are great. The client was awesome. It was fulfilling in a way that it got me off the sidelines, investing in real estate, actually taking action, because that's like in golf. Keep your head down. Real estate investing, like the number one piece of advice is take action, just do it, right? But that's what got me into the game of actually starting and actually learning the process of making offers and submitting documents, and doing all that. So that's by far that will go down as my favorite for sure.
Do you have any lessons you feel you learned from that first deal?
Yes. So it's very granular, or kind of specific to the rent-own strategy, but have your tenant buyer pay for the home inspection, because we did about 5 or 6 home inspections, because on properties that we were going through, then it didn't work out for some reason. So we were like, I don't know, like $4,000 or $3,500 in home inspections of homes that we never bought. And then slowly after, get the tenant buyer to pay for the home inspection so that they can do 10 of them if they want, they're paying for it. So that's something that instantly the next...
Everyone's choosing the homes too, right?
Yeah. So instantly the next deal, it started with, the tenant buyers, paying for the home inspections. Yeah.
That makes sense. Nice. All right. Well, it's nice to learn from our good deals, but we tend to learn more from our bad deals. Can you think of your worst deal or your least favorite deal that you've done?
Yes. The one that was, least favorite, or just didn't turn out to plan, was a property that, again, the tenant buyer chose, and it was in remote Ontario. It was, oh my goodness, I forget the name of the town now. It was so small. But it was like an hour from anything, maybe 2 hours from a Walmart, which, and the tenant buyer, had the minimum criterias, and they were, starting their own business, and they were going to make all this money and, all that kind of stuff. And about a year or so into the program, the house needed a lot of work as well. So you would love this type of property, but, for rent to own, it wasn't an ideal property. But so the house needed work. The tenant buyer was kind of at the minimum criteria, really remote part of Ontario. And about almost a year in, the tenant buyer just stopped making payments. MIA, not responding to emails or phone calls. So we had to drive 2-3 hours to get to this place. And when we got there, it looked like no one had been there for a long time, right? Lights were frozen, things like that. So, unfortunately, we had a joint venture partner on that deal. So we had, again, the minimum down payment, but it covered just closing costs or a little bit more. at that point there, and then to list a property and to sell it. So yeah, we took a loss on it. And again, the lesson was don't go too remote because there wasn't a huge market for people to buy these properties in the middle of nowhere. This is pre-COVID, before everybody could work from home and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
it was like, let's stick to, houses that are in neighborhoods and subdivisions that are marketable, that can sell quick, that there are comparables. So it took us almost a year and a bit. We ended up doing some work to the place so that we could sell it. And by the end of it, I think, it wasn't a large amount of money that we lost, maybe 20, 30,000. And we actually made our investor whole. They didn't lose any of their initial investment. Now, they didn't make the return that we had scheduled, but they got back their initial investment. We took a little bit of a hit to make that happen as well. But yeah, I think it was really ambitious of us, as like, oh, we can do them anywhere and it works anywhere. This person wants to work because they travel all over. So it doesn't matter where they need to live. And for me, it was more like, hey, what's realistic? Like, and what's the worst case scenario that if we have to sell a property? Is the first time that we ever had to do that. So let's make sure it's in an area that people want to buy and not very remote and very specific type of property. So,
and what about the amount of work the property needed? Are you still willing to do properties like that if they're not remote?
Yeah. Again, if it's complete like gut jobs, no. But if it's like, hey, it's dated and we need wood panels need to be upgraded or updated, or this old plumbing or fixtures or things like that. But again, we want to make, like, it's almost, we've had many contractors in our program because that's their issue. They don't need to claim their income, but they have the skills to do all the work. So we've had a lot of success from that way there, where they've put in the sweat equity and obviously the capital to replace it. But if they don't have the skill or knowledge and they're going to have to contract it all out, it's expensive. So they're like, here, we want this house that needs all this work. Do you have an extra $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 to do this? No. Then no, right? So let's look at it. Let's look at another property, right? So it's not a complete no, but we almost want, like, well, what's your plan? What's your budget? Show us how you're going to be able to do this, and then yeah, we'll definitely consider it. But most of the time, it's move-in ready, cosmetic stuff that just needs updating, or some paint and countertops and all that kind of stuff. Not to the point where we're ripping places down to the studs or even more, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, part of the remote thing is for flips too. It can be hard to get things renovated out there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a big problem too.
And yeah, hard to.
Well, yeah. We were, we went through one contractor, and then we had to get another contractor. That part of the bill of doing the work was having like a motorhome or renting like a place for them to live on site, because it was like an hour and a half for them just to get to the job site. So there's 3 hours of pay of not just driving, right? So like, hey, here, let's rent somewhere that you can stay or have like an RV that's comfortable for you so that you're there on site. Is actually worth doing that. So that's a great point. Yeah, the remote stuff that, yeah, there's not contractors that are lining up to do those jobs.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing those stories. We always learn the most from things that go wrong. And if people can learn from our mistakes, they can hopefully learn not to do it themselves.
Yeah. I want to share just a quick quote from my mom. She always says, "You're a good problem solver because you cause so many problems." Right? So you learn from your mistakes, you get into circumstances, issues, and then you get past them and you overcome them. It's a skill you build.
I think problem solving is like one of the most useful skills to a real estate investor or any business owner. I think
absolutely.
If you come across problems and can't successfully solve them over and over and over, you're not going to do well in business. It's definitely one of the most practical skills. Let's move on to the final segment of our show with our wrap-up questions. First, what has changed about your approach to real estate investing with your experience?
Ooh, patience. Way more patience. I wanted to go a mile a minute. Once we got that taste of it, and once we kind of got the idea of it, of like more. That was just always the goal. It's more now about patience, quality. How is this deal going to impact my day-to-day life? Is it going to change my life, or is it just going to cause more time, headaches, issues? What do I enjoy doing? What don't I enjoy doing? So I think that's been the biggest change. It's, it's not necessarily about just putting a bigger number. It's about more quality. And, again, it's an age-old cliche, but, do more with less. And that's with deals, with people, with, things that, it's going deeper, not wider. So like the relationships that you build, the contacts that you make, really go deeper and get beyond the surface level of just doing one deal and transaction about like, hey, what's life going to look like in 5 years? Because we're going to be celebrating 10 years in business this year. And I'm telling you, I talked about that first deal like it was yesterday. I remember it like that. There's some deals I forget, but the 91st or, the 204th, right? But, it goes by quick. And looking back on it, it's like, well, what would I have changed or how would I do it because of the experiences? But again, thinking about how is it going to impact my life? How is it going to change? And the patience of letting things unfold and not wanting it all done tomorrow, because it's not how it works. We've been blessed or been very lucky that appreciation helped everybody. And, that was some people's primary strategy is a real estate appreciation. But real estate is not get rich quick. It's get rich for sure. It doesn't say when, but it's just get rich for sure over a long period of time, not fast.
Absolutely. If you could go back in time, what's one piece of advice you'd have for a younger you?
Ooh, start younger. I don't know. I started real estate investing, reading a book like I was 26, 27, really, made that first deal. It's 10 years ago now. So I was just about 30 at the time doing that deal. I tell now, like I have younger cousins that are 16, 17 years old. I'm like, listen, hurry up, get your money saved, go house hack, get your first property by the time you're 20, you'll own that by the time you're 50, no mortgage, right? So it happens quick. It started younger. That's what I always regret. But again, I didn't know, I didn't have the information. It wasn't presented to me. I didn't seek it. So, but yeah, just get started younger. That's what I'd probably say.
Nice. All right, last question. What is the most overlooked or the most overhyped investing strategy right now?
Ooh, overlooked is always rent-to-own, because it doesn't matter which real estate podcast or anything. It's always like, and flips and multifamily and BRRRRs. And I'm like, they named like 7 strategies. I'm like, say rent-to-own, right? So overlooked for sure. And you know what? I think that's why I resonate with it so much. It's like, it's underestimated. I always say, like, I have this thing, like, underestimate, dare you. But it's always overlooked. Overrated. I don't know. I don't know if there's one thing overrated. I haven't done all the strategies. So like I've done, duplex conversions. I've done, I guess, versions of flips where we've had properties that have had the flip. But I don't know. I think it's what works for you. If it works for you, then it's not overrated, right? It's perfectly rated for what you need in your life. So I don't hate on any of the strategies. If it's producing income, if it's helping you live the lifestyle that you want and, you enjoy doing it, rock on, man.
Nice. Is there anything we didn't talk about regarding rent-to-owns that you want to talk about?
No, I think we've covered a lot, how the process works, who the different people are. I think if it's the first time that you've been exposed to this, or maybe you've heard of it and don't know all the details of it, I implore you to kind of find out more and learn more, or tell a friend. I always say, tell a friend, because not enough people know that it even exists or that it's even possible. And that's from the tenant buyer side. That's from the passive joint venture side, and even the professionals that closing more deals and helping more clients. That's the name of the game, the name of the business, how you stay in business. So it can be a tool that you can utilize. So just share this podcast with a friend and just, I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk about one of my passions and share this. So no, I think, we've covered a lot today.
So Alfonso, if people want to get in touch with you, find out more about you or JAAG, or find out about becoming a joint venture partner or working with you as a mortgage broker or realtor, where can they reach out to you and your team?
Email is my favorite. Email is my to-do list. If you email me, Alfonso at JAAG Properties, JAAG Properties.com, it's my to-do list. So within 24, sometimes 48 hours, depending where I am, what I'm doing, I will get back to you. We'll schedule a call. We'll get in touch. That's how you get a hold of me. For more info about our program, rent to own, applying, whether it's a tenant buyer, joint venture, all those people on our website, jaagproperties.com. I have so many resources, more information about rent to own than you'll ever need in your entire life. So it's all kind of close there. So feel free to reach out and get in touch.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, Alfonso. Take care.
The pleasure's mine. Thanks, Luke.